been said that practice makes perfect. In the 1960s, the John Wooden UCLA basketball dynasty took that phrase one better and said perfect practice makes perfect. One of the constitutionals here within Polk County, the Supervisor of Elections, believes that perfect practice makes perfect, and absolutely probably one of the most amazing things to watch in Polk County is during the election process. The staff over at the Supervisors of Elections, Lori Edwards, her crew, and of course the people that they bring on during the elections do incredible work for the residents of Polk County. And joining us in studio is the Supervisor of Elections, on the job since 2001, Lori Edwards. Lori, how are you doing today?
Good to be here, Brian.
Well, it's nice you could join us. I think it's the first time you've been in here.
Yes, it has.
Yeah. How do you like the artwork?
Looks like it should be weekend and I should be fishing.
Yeah. Kind of a relaxing type thing, isn't it?
It is.
Well, Lori, let's let the folks at home know what exactly is the mission of the Supervisor of Elections.
Well, we have two primary responsibilities, and one of them, of course, is to conduct fair elections, and that most people are aware of. The one part of our responsibility, though, that's not often thought about is we maintain the voter rolls. And you just kind of take it for granted, but people are moving every day, and young people are turning 18 every day, becoming eligible to vote. And unfortunately, some of our residents are dying every day. And so that's a very dynamic list, and we consider it very important to have the best and most accurate list possible. So that, in addition to conducting those fair elections, are our main jobs.
And obviously, it takes an incredible staff. You have full and part-time, and then of course you have election poll workers. Talk about the people that you have working for you.
Well, and I like to say that it's people working for you and for your viewers, because truly we all work for the taxpayers. So you as taxpayers have about 23 to 25 full-time year-round employees at the elections office to keep things going during the slower period. But at election day, we need about 1,500 people to conduct an election here in Polk County. So I have to say that, as your Supervisor of Elections, is my biggest challenge, is growing a staff from maybe 23 people to 1,500 people.
And as we said at the beginning, perfect practice makes perfect. You have some incredible training things going on throughout the year that make this, and I don't mean to speak governmentese, but transparent and seamless, if you would.
That's true, and training is so important and education is so important. Most people realize the laws change all the time. Well, our workers also change all the time, so we work very hard to make sure that not only our full-time year-round staff, but also those temporary workers have the knowledge they need to get the job done. If we don't give them the knowledge, they're not going to be able to really perform at the level we would like and provide excellent customer service.
And throwing numbers out there, over roughly 575,000, 585,000 roughly? Is that?
The number of voters?
Well, I mean just residents in the county, roughly.
Yeah.
And 2,054 square miles. You know, when you go to a smaller county, but it's got that many people don't realize that this county is the size of a couple of states. And talk about what it takes to pull that mission off on such a grand magnitude.
Well, as I mentioned, we have 1,500 poll workers. We have about, give or take, 170 precincts. It takes 200 pieces of election equipment. It takes probably about 250 computers, probably a similar number of cell phones that are needed. And then we take 4 moving vans that stay busy for 2 days doing nothing but making sure that each and every precinct are outfitted in the way they need to. And then, of course, after Election Day, we have to kind of unwind all that. You know, it takes, for a big election, 11 tons of ballots here in Polk County.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many trees is that?
I have no idea. Now you're making me feel guilty.
No. And I've been privileged to be a part of a lot of the elections, whether it be in coverage or even like what you had said, something that people don't realize. Things as simple as internet connectivity, telephone lines, things that go into each one of these precincts, and then when they're done, these precincts go back to their normal, whether it be churches or meeting halls or whatever, just things that people don't even think about.
That's exactly right. And most of these very important tasks are performed by people who, don't work with us all the time. They work for maybe a day or two every couple years. And it just shows you how lucky we are in Polk County that people in our community are willing to come forth and understand how important election is and show up at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning on Election Day and bring their best to the job.
Talk about the partnerships with the Board of County Commissioners, with the Clerk of Courts, things along that lines that people don't see behind the scenes that make this, and here I go with that word again, seamless. That transition. It takes the village to do this, right?
It does. It does. The logistics, the challenge of the logistics and the calendar, that we spend months ahead of time, and then we review every single detail, every step of the way. I think that the most valuable resource that we are able to employ from the Board of County Commissioners or the Clerk of the Court or the tax collectors is many of them allow their employees to come be election workers on Election Day or even Election Night where we need extra help. And these are people who do understand how important elections are. They're generally very good with computers. As a rule, they're hard workers and smart, and so we're really happy to have them on our team.
As a supervisor of election, how has social media, how has it made your job easier?
Well, that's a good question. We do certainly participate with Facebook, a little bit with Twitter. I don't know. It's interesting that you say that. I think that it's important that all government offices do make sure that they are being involved at that level. So far, I don't think that I can quantify that it's made any difference, but maybe it's made the office a little friendlier to younger people, which, of course, that's important.
Exactly. Being on a job since 2001, how have you seen the election process change?
That's a good question. When I was first elected, which was November 2000, that's when Florida's election blew up.
Yeah, debacle?
Debacle is a word that comes to mind.
We put the D in debacle, didn't we?
Yes. And so there has not been a dull moment ever since, as you can imagine. There have been a lot of changes, all for the better, primarily efforts to see that the effort is, like you said, more transparent, that people are more aware of all that goes into an election, and that we are more aware of the potential for fraud and the need for really high security. I think that has changed a lot in recent times.
And something that the residents of the county don't see on a regular basis, on the night that those ballots come in, it is a very secure location. There's sheriff's deputies all throughout the process. The secret room in the back. What is that called? Where nobody's allowed in, but
everybody can see though.
Exactly,
everybody can see
exactly.
In there, and that's our canvas board room. Yes.
What exactly is the mission of the canvas board?
Well, the canvas board is comprised of elected officials, and that's important. That it's not an appointee of anyone. Every one of the canvas board members, and there's 3, answers only to the voters of Polk County, and their job primarily is to determine voter eligibility if someone voted a provisional ballot, if their eligibility as a voter was in question, or also they evaluate the absentee ballots if there's any question. The way we determine whether an absentee ballot is acceptable or not is we match the signature on the envelope with the signature on file at election headquarters. If that's in question at all, rather than have a staff person, basically an appointee of mine, instead of having a staff person do it, we have a judge, a county commissioner, and myself, all elected officials, make the key and critical decisions for an election so that we have to answer to the voters ultimately.
Over the time, how has absentee balloting and early voting, how has that changed? It seems like it has become this huge...
That's a very good point. In fact, you asked before how things have changed. Probably the biggest change we've seen is the increase in mail ballot as well as early voting by Polk County residents. As of the last election, about half of our voters in Polk County had already cast their ballot either by mail or at an early voting site before we even opened the first precinct on Election Day.
And that, does that make your job easier? Does it?
Well, there's a little of both. You know, election day, hopefully it does keep the lines shorter. You know, we really didn't have problems, you know, widespread with lines in Polk County on election day. So it does take the pressure off the precincts. On the other hand, from our standpoint, the election administration standpoint, now instead of one election, which would be on election day, where you open the precincts from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., now we instead have to run 3 elections. We're running a mail election, we're running an early voting election, and then we're running an election day election.
And the numbers are absolutely, you know, dead on accurate. The work that you guys do is incredible, and it's a testament to you and your staff and the people that work with you.
Excellent people.
One thing that I noticed this year, and I've been here since 1997, people are wanting a lot more say in their government. There's more people voting. How does that affect you guys?
I think that's wonderful. I mean, that's what I get up for every day. I want to see everybody voting, and the more people that become aware of that, it just makes our job even, you know, more exciting, if you will. And I do love my job. I say on a regular basis, especially to young people, people who aren't maybe interested at the moment. The presidential election draws a lot of attention, but some of these smaller elections don't always. I try to remind people that if they don't vote, they can't hear you.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk a little bit of, you know, going forward. What's going on at the Supervisor of Elections office now?
Well, we're gearing up for elections right now, even though it's an off an election year, because we have 4 city elections coming up on November 7th. The city of Fort Meade, the city of Auburndale, the city of Winter Haven, and the one that's getting the most attention right now is the city of Lakeland. All those cities have city commission races, and the Lakeland mayor's race, as you may have seen, is already starting to heat up.
Oh, yeah.
There's still months to go.
Now, who can vote in these elections, and how do they go about doing this?
Well, city residents who are registered voters are the only people who are eligible. So if you have a business, for instance, inside the city of Fort Meade or Winter Haven, but you don't live in the city, you would not be eligible. The way I like to say, to be sure if you're in a city or not, if you're paying city taxes and you're a registered voter, city taxes at your residence, then you would be eligible to vote. Also, if you haven't registered yet, the deadline to register is October 7th.
We had mentioned the debacle of 2000, and it seems like one way or another, places in Florida are always getting election coverage for the bad. Polk County, you never hear about it. What do you attribute that to?
Our outstanding election workers. Just if it wasn't for them, I mean, with just a slip by anybody, you could wind up in the newspaper. It's the nature of the business. You have to get it right the first time, every time in elections. And we are so fortunate to have people in our community, as I mentioned before, government employees from other local agencies, as well as we have nurses and teachers and retirees. And we even have a bank manager who managed to take the day off because they know how important elections are and come to work for us on election day so that we can be successful.
How do you become an election worker, and what's the process? What's the training involved?
There is training for every position. It can run up to 8 hours, and frankly, some people even get trained more than 8 hours. The training occurs a couple weeks before Election Day, and you apply. The best way to apply is to call us, actually, and the number in Bartow is 534-5888, 534-5888. You can check into applying on our website, and that's polkelections.com. And we're always looking for new people. You know, the election, the big election, the governor's election, is almost a year away, but it's not too soon to let us know that you're interested.
How do you foresee that going down as far as voting-wise? You think that'll be a big ticket turnout?
You know, I can look back to history when it comes to the governor's elections, or we call them the gubernatorial elections. And to be honest with you, Brian, turnout in Polk County or statewide, not usually very high. We're lucky statewide if we hit 50%.
When you talk turnout, what would you call a successful? I mean, what's the biggest numbers we've ever seen, and what's the lowest numbers?
The biggest numbers that we've ever seen that I'm aware of is probably that November 2000. Need we say it again? Debacle.
Yeah.
When I think we had 78%, almost 80% of the voters, registered voters, and that, you know, is an amazing turnout. So anything I would say above 50% is something that you can be happy about.
Anything else you'd like the residents of Polk County to know about? Anything else you want to tell them
The
about?
only thing I can think of is, you know, we have a very aggressive outreach department. I think it's important that we don't just live in our little box here in Bartow. And so if people are members of a group that they would like somebody to come and give a speech, or maybe they have some type of an event coming up, and it can be a small event.
I've seen you guys out at the barbecues.
Yeah, well, barbecues that's our specialty, Brian. We do the barbecues in a hurry. But we'll set up a table for voter registration in an event you might have. And another thing that's surprisingly interesting is we give tours of election headquarters. So I hope people will call us.
Lori, you're always welcome to come in and talk about anything that you have going on at the Supervisor of Elections. It's an outstanding job that you do, that your staff does, and the poll workers do for the residents of Polk County.
Well, thanks, Brian. It was a pleasure.
All right. And we want to make sure you at home, make sure you contact the Supervisor of Elections, whether it be for voting questions or, as Lori said, it's a very simple process. If you'd like to learn more about the voting process or like to take a tour of the facility, it's as simple as giving them a call, 863-534-5888, or look them up on the web at polkelections.com.